Neil, welcome to the We Are Digital podcast.
From a very, very young age, I wanted to be a soldier. We came under mortar and rocket fire every day. I'd say anyone who says they're a great leader isn't. We thought he had about 24 hours, otherwise he kills you.
Yeah.
It was my birthday, but we'd had this great summer. It just felt like life was really getting started in the next phase.
Yeah.
So it hit me very, very hard.
Yeah. What would you say is a great leader, Neil? Neil, welcome to the We Are Digital podcast. To start with, I just want to ask you a really interesting question. If there's a Netflix documentary about your life, how would the opening scene play out?
I'd be underwater, just because I like it. I'd be diving. I love scuba diving, and I've just got back into it after many years gap. It doesn't necessarily set the documentary up well, but I don't care. That's what I'd like to be doing.
Okay, amazing. And one of the things that I want to kind of touch on is I want you to take us back to sort of where it all started.
Where I was born, or like
well, I guess so. Right from the very beginning. So you mentioned that you were adopted. So maybe sort of start there.
Well, I was adopted. My birth mother was a single parent. She was very young at the time. I was born in Hackney in London, but I'm Irish, which has turned out to be a godsend for travel since then, because I've got an Irish passport. But I was adopted to a lovely couple who are my parents, and I think being adopted is fantastic, and it worked out brilliantly for me because my parents had been wanting to have a baby and thought that they couldn't, and they adopted me, and the result for me was a really loving, stable childhood, which I think has been really important to the way I've lived the rest of my life.
And did you ever find that you kind of was missing something in your life as a result of that, or did your life feel complete, or did you ever actually go to look for your original birth mother?
I don't think I ever felt I was missing anything. I think there was always a bit of mystery as to who my parents were, because of course when I was young I had absolutely no idea, and my adoptive parents didn't really know. I think they knew a little bit, but nothing particularly useful, nothing that would allow me to trace them. But no, I never felt I was missing anything. I had a really normal upbringing, and in fact, I have a brother and sister, and my sister's also adopted, and my brother isn't. He was the final child, and it turned out my parents could have children all along. But no, I never felt I was missing anything. But then later, when my elder daughter was born, we were living in Cyprus at the time, and there was something about having a daughter that made me want to complete the line a little bit. So I did an internet search just to see, ridiculous, and this is the relatively early days of the internet. This is about 2005, and I did an internet search, and honestly, in 10 minutes, I found a note from my birth family, actually from an aunt, saying, "We're looking for you. Get in touch."
Okay.
And I did. I had previously looked up. I'd found out my original name, so that allowed me then to do a search. But yeah, I never felt I was missing anything.
Okay. Did you meet up with them, and
Yes.
do you stay in touch with them now?
Yeah. With the family, I'm in touch. My birth mother died a few years ago, but I'm still in touch with cousins. I've actually got a huge family in Ireland.
Yeah, I'm from Irish background as well, and my dad's one of 10 siblings, and I've got tens of, if not hundreds of cousins. It's I don't even know who half of them are, to be fair. Yeah. So I imagine it's kind of typical of most Irish families, I think.
Yeah, it's a big Dublin family, but they're all lovely. They're all lovely people. We haven't been over for to see them for a couple of years. But yeah, it's lovely to have another family, like an extra family.
Yeah, yeah. And then from there, so you had a great relationship with your adopted parents, which is amazing. You obviously then had some challenges in sixth form. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, my mum died. My adoptive mum died. She was ill with cancer for, I think, about 4 or 5 years, and she died when I was in the lower sixth. And I don't know. I mean, this might be an excuse, but I think it knocked me off track. I was academically doing quite well, but I always kind of tended towards finding the easier or the more fun way of doing things. But nonetheless, I was probably on for quite good grades, and losing mum. I mean, nothing really seemed important. Nothing really seemed to matter very much at that point, and I definitely lost my direction and application, which again is something I went through again later in life when I was bereaved and lost my wife. But so yeah, it knocked me off in a big way. But then I was very supported by friends, and actually now I look back, by teachers and by the instructors in the Cadet force, which was a youth organisation I was in. So there were a lot of people with me who probably softened the blow, but it was still a huge blow.
Yeah. Was there something that you wanted to do at that stage in life that you thought, I'm going to be X, Y, or Z as kind of a future career, or had you not really had that planned out at that stage?
I wanted to join the army. I always wanted to join the army. I don't really know why, but from a very, very young age, I wanted to be a soldier. From probably age 5, that was it. I don't know what I'd have done if I wasn't a soldier, but my adoptive dad was a journalist, and I think that writing is the only other thing that I could visualise myself going into at that stage. Okay,
and I mean, obviously going into thinking about it, 5 years of age, wanting to go into the forces is quite interesting. There must have been something that sort of inspired you to sort of take that path. Was it a movie? Was it something that you'd seen in an interview on television? Was it friends of family type thing? What?
No, I mean, definitely not family. My dad did national service and hated the army.
Right.
Hated it. He couldn't believe I wanted to go into it. I remember, well, I say I remember, I mean, I've got photos of it, going to horse guards where there are the soldiers in ceremonial uniform when I was very young, and there's a picture of me and my cousin stood to attention either side of a horse guard, and I guess I was probably about 5 then. That may have been one of those early moments, but it wasn't logical. I didn't really understand what an army career was. And it's almost an unnatural interest. It didn't come out of anything in my childhood or my upbringing. I associated it with adventure, which turned out to be true. And then as I got older, I was an army cadet when I was 12, and I loved the physical challenges. We did a 100-mile march in Holland every year, something called Nijmegen marches. I think I did it 4 times when I was a cadet. And
was that out of choice, Neil? Because doing a 100-mile march 4 times seems a bit like torture rather than
fun.
It
did hurt. My feet hurt.
Yeah.
I had this. Then afterwards, I've always had this weird thing that blisters or sore feet make me feel good. There's like this feeling of familiarity. But no, Nijmegen is it's like the London Marathon. It's similar distance every day, but you walk it. But the Dutch crowds are just they love it. I mean, there's tens or hundreds of thousands of people clapping you along. There's bands in every town that you go through. It's a huge international event. There's teams and individuals from all over the world. It's wonderful. I mean, I still miss it. I haven't done it for years, but it's every July, and every July I think, it's Nijmegen now. And I hope one day. I've been injured for a few years, but I'm getting better, and one day I'd like to do it again.
Okay. So, I mean, did you excel at the cadets then? So, obviously you were doing that for a number of years before you then went into, I guess, the armed forces as an adult. Was it the cadets that really kind of ignited that?
Yeah. I did excel at it. What I wasn't giving in school, in the 5th form, 6th form, I was giving in cadets. I took part in everything. I was in the shooting team. I went on the Canada exchange trip. And it's got, I mean, it still has, but there were some great opportunities there. The visits to Holland, Canada, things I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. And I had some great mentors. The instructors, who I'm still friends with now. We have a reunion in next spring for our group, but the instructors were so high quality. One of them recently went on to own Brighton Pier. So these people were really unusually high achieving. Okay. So they were great mentors for life, not just to do with military things, to do with mindset, to do with anything being possible. We did a Nepal expedition, stuff like that, things that really went beyond what you'd expect.
Yeah, so aspirational, basically. You had some aspirational people in your life at that stage.
Yeah.
And then you obviously then went into the military. And how did that sort of come about? Where did you start? What was the process that you went through to get into that?
I did a scholarship entry to Sandhurst. So it's a long time ago, but I remember it being I think a 3-day selection process. And some of it was quite formidable because I went to a state school, and the scholarship was very competitive. About, I think, up to 40 of them or 45 were given out a year. And it guaranteed you a place at Sandhurst further down the line. I mean, you did this in the 6th form. And the board, the academic board that I had to face, me, a kind of a state schoolboy, and I was sort of sat in front, and there was the head teacher of Harrow or Eton. There was an Oxford professor. There were some really formidable academics pulling me apart, and I have to say, at that age, there wasn't much to pull apart. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to remember the sorts of stuff they asked me, but they quizzed me on what I read. What newspaper did I read? I was 15, for God's sake, or 16. And I knew I had to read proper papers because we'd been briefed. But what's my favourite bit of the newspaper? And I think I said the obituaries. I mean, I said something that looking back was pretty lame, but I got through.
Do you think coming from a state school had to put you at a disadvantage with Sandhurst versus for a private school education?
I don't think going to a state school put me or puts anyone at a disadvantage. However, I think that going to a private school gives some advantages. In my selection group for the scholarship, I just remember seemingly all of the other candidates being from private schools, and lots of them knowing each other. We played rugby against you last year, and there were just all these connections between people.
And did that make you want to fight harder? Knowing that, seeing those kind of relationships already built, and you almost being the outsider in that situation.
I think it made me want to go home, actually, but I didn't. I mean, no, I don't think so. I just wasn't sure that I could be in this club. Would they want someone like me? But what was interesting was that the process. Well, I mean, it selected me, and as far as I know, it didn't select any of the others in my group. So actually, that public school thing that made them seem very at home and comfortable in that environment possibly wasn't what the selectors were looking for. And many, many years later, I was deputy president of the Army Officer Selection Board. So I was on the other side of the process, interviewing and assessing and watching candidates for Sandhurst, nearly probably 25 years later. And the process is so robust. So they really are looking for certain things that are very measurable that aren't to do with accent or background. But I just think, I mean, then when I went on to Sandhurst, it was still probably 2/3 or more had gone to private school. And I have to say, their education was more rounded than mine.
Yeah.
They just knew more. They just knew more about the world, about art, about culture.
Do you think some of that's not just the private school sector, though, Neil? Do you think that's more to do with maybe the position of their parents, so they might be on a better salary, etc., so therefore they're affording more opportunities to their children?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly overseas holidays give you more connection to the world, I suppose. You know, you see other places. But that said, everything I did, I mean, the school I went to was I'd have to say it was a mediocre school, but it was okay. It was a very, very large school and an easy place to get lost in. But I did okay from it. You know, although my A levels, as I was saying, they weren't great. I got 4 A levels, so I got a reasonable, but not high grade. My children find this very funny, but you know, I got 4 passes, so it can't have been that bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously still reasonable in terms of then where you've got to in life. And I think sometimes maybe too much weight is put on the education system that isn't maybe as relevant in today's world that maybe it was 30, 40 years ago as well.
Yes, and the things that I remember getting from school came from either very enthusiastic teachers, generally in subjects that I loved, or sport. I played a lot of sport, and school gave the opportunity to be in lots of teams, and then actually Army Cadets. Army Cadets was a huge part of my life in my spare time.
Yeah, and then so you were at Sandhurst, and then what happened?
Well, lots happened really, but
I mean, next steps from Sandhurst then. So you completed your training, obviously, and then what was your first position in the forces?
I went to Belize. I was a second lieutenant, and I was very, very fortunate to be offered one of the best postings available for my intake. And it was Belize. It was a year in Belize as a transport troop commander, and I have to say it was one of the best years of my life. I mean, it was just an incredible experience. I lived so much in a year. Time in the jungle, diving, traveling over the area, going up to Mexico. It was just such fun.
Would that be a destination that, if you hadn't have been into the army, that you would have ever have gone to?
I don't think so. It's not a big tourist destination from the UK. It is more from America because it's easier to get to from there, but not really from the UK. So, no, I don't think so. I think the army has definitely taken me to places that I just wouldn't have gone to otherwise.
In terms of the position, so you mentioned there about second lieutenant. What is that, Neil? Because, you know, if you're not from a military background, you don't really understand what those kind of roles are. So what's the responsibilities that you had at that stage?
I was what was called a troop commander. So a troop was about 40 soldiers, and I was the head, but in some ways the nominal head. So I was kind of the leader of it, but I also worked very closely with I had a very experienced staff sergeant and sergeant, and then I think 5 full corporals. So I had people really keeping me on track, and we became great friends, particularly the senior NCOs and I, because the sergeants and staff sergeants, we spent a lot of time together, and we had some great adventures. We had some really great. The job out there wasn't that demanding. We were resupplying other parts of Belize, so a lot of time together, and we had some great adventures. We had some really great. The job out there wasn't that demanding. We were resupplying other parts of Belize, so sometimes through the jungle to. There was one at a place called Rideau, and they were quite isolated. Sometimes 12 or 13 hour drives to get to them, but But that wasn't that hard. You know, the camps didn't move, and no one was shooting at us. It was really just a long drive.
So I guess that's a misconception, isn't it, about the military, that you're constantly in war zones or fighting, and actually some of it's about supporting other nations, people, disasters, etc.
Yeah. I mean, Belize, we were garrisoning Belize because there was a perceived, although pretty much extinct, threat from Guatemala. So we were there as a kind of a garrison and also as a training base. We still have a training base out there, but it used to be much larger. But yeah, a lot of time in the army, not much is going on.
Yeah.
And that's when you play sport, go on expeditions and train for next time something is going on.
Yeah. In terms of active battle then, Neil, you've obviously had some time in Pakistan, and you told an interesting story to me about that back in 1995. Do you want to sort of expand on that?
Oh, that was an expedition.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that wasn't. I mean, Pakistan at the time was pretty calm, and I was on an Army Cadet Force expedition, but as a regular Army officer attached to it, in the Hindu Kush, and we were in an area between Chitral and Gilgit, which is old northwest frontier territory, and we were probably about a week away from anywhere, and one member of our expedition became very ill, and we had the mountain medicine book on us. I mean, you didn't have smartphones then anyway, but even if you did, you wouldn't get a signal in that sort of area. And we looked up what he had, were certain it was something called peritonitis, which is a killer. It gives it's a burst appendix, and we thought he had about, well, the book said, I think, that 24 hours, otherwise it kills you.
Yeah.
And we'd gone through a Pakistan army base, or past a Pakistan, like a really isolated fort with about 20 soldiers in it. A day before, I think, and the only thing we could think of to do to rescue this expedition member was to get to that fort and radio for some sort of medical support. And we had a Pakistan Army liaison officer with us, who was a lovely guy, a Captain Munir, and he and I basically ran back overnight on what was a pretty dangerous trip. Now I look back on it, because overnight you get the melt from the glaciers, and the rivers that we'd pretty much walked along were I don't know, like, you know, kind of 20 feet high and raging, and we were climbing along the sides over this raging water, and it was probably a lot more dangerous than my 25-year-old self realized. But we got back, and we ordered a helicopter, and they flew this guy out, and it turned out he was fine. It wasn't peritonitis, but we were right to, you know, we saved someone's life unnecessarily. But he this guy in question
wasn't just a sprained ankle or anything like that, was it?
No, it was. He's a very serious mountaineer. He's done a few Everest expeditions, and he thought he had this, and we all agreed based on the book. And Captain Munir has now turned out to be, I'm pretty certain, he is now Field Marshal Munir, who's the head of the Pakistan Army, and has been involved in these negotiations over Iran. He was a very impressive guy back then, and has clearly gone on to become someone.
Huge things, yeah.
Huge. I think it's him.
And obviously that's been a completely because of your influence on his career, Neil.
No, he was very impressive. I liked him very much, but he was very, very impressive guy. Very, deserves to be where he is now, I think.
And then Iraq. So you spent some time in Iraq, and you were under some mortar fire there. Is that right?
That's right. That's what I've got.
Yeah,
that's why I've got that. I led a Gurkha squadron of, I think we started with 175. Started sounds awful, doesn't it? But it isn't. That we didn't lose anyone in that respect. But we started the tour with about 175, and then because of the British withdrawal, we were constantly sending people home, and I think we ended up with I think we finished the tour with about 130. But yeah, we were doing the logistics for the British force out there. So I had people in all of the bases across the country, all the British bases across the country, and a small team over the border in Kuwait. And I mean, looking back, I enjoyed it because we had purpose. You know, sometimes in life when you've got a really clear objective, you just have a job and you know what the job is and you have to get it done. And I had a great team, a really, really great team. I had a brilliant ops officer, Amar, his name was Captain Bundia, Amar Bundia, and I had a superb 2IC, Kim Gauchan, who's he and I, well, we're still great friends. So I was just really, really lucky with again, like I said in my first tour in Belize, it's the people and the relationships with the people and the friendships that make these things work.
Oh, was this the first time you've been injured in active kind of duty, or you've been injured before?
No, that's the only. I mean, like the army, honestly, there's a lot of time sat behind a desk in Oxfordshire or wherever, writing reports and doing staff work. So yeah, that was the first time. I mean, we came under mortar and rocket fire every day, just every day. Maybe there was the odd day off, but like of the 6.5, 7 months we were there, we were constantly under fire, and sometimes it was even funny. I mean, there were ridiculously funny times when we'd hear the rockets coming in, and it sounds like, you know, if you stood on the station and a train comes past at full speed, when you get the stand back from the platform, a train is now coming through at full speed. That's what a rocket sounds like when it misses you and kind of goes another few hundred yards. I don't know why. It's something about the way it disturbs the air. But so we'd hear that. We'd sometimes be sat in our tent at night, just sat around chatting, and we'd hear that. And I remember one night, me and another of the couple of company commanders were sat having a brew, watching Top Gear, of all things, and we heard the train going past, and we knew it was close. You know, we all got up and bumped into each other with our brews and spilt them everywhere. And I just remember it was like a black and white comedy moment. But the time I got hit was in Basra Palace, which was one of Saddam Hussein's old palaces, and we'd done a resupply convoy into there, and we were just getting ready to leave, and the first mortar of the day. So when you went in, you were being spotted. So the insurgents had people in the camp who were kind of quietly phoning people, and you couldn't stop them. You couldn't prove it, but they were phoning someone saying. And it would be a grid that they'd given before a location. They'd given before there's people there now, and they would have seen us gathering. And the first mortar of the day landed really, really close to me. And you don't know what it is because a mortar doesn't make a noise as it's coming in. So there was just this kind of clink on the floor, which looked like a Coke ring pull, as I remember it. So what's that doing there? And I think it was the mortar that had landed and not gone off, and then. Seconds later, another one did go off, and I had this really weird Matrix-like experience of watching the shrapnel come. I mean, the shrapnel that's in my face is still in there because they couldn't get it out. But I watched it go from the explosion, kind of towards my eye, and land in me where it did.
Does that make you kind of question your own mortality at that stage, Neil?
Yeah, I think it was questioned for me actually but yeah, I think so. It was definitely a sense of this is real. Like the army can seem like a huge adventure until it isn't.
Yeah.
And at that moment, it was. So I know there's kind of. Whether things actually slow down or whether you make them slow down when you recollect them afterwards, I don't know. But I remember it very slowly. The fact I could see a piece of shrapnel arcing through the air, which presumably would be going far too fast to normally see. And Yeah, I did. I mean, my actual thoughts as it came towards me were, oh, fuck. I didn't actually want to die doing this. And then we took cover, and then there was just a barrage, like a lot of mortars came in a very short space. About probably 10 or so landed very, very closely around us. So we were kind of lying there where these things were going off around us. And then,
did you have children at this point, Neil, or not?
Yeah, I had Matilda, my elder daughter, was had been born.
So I guess did that make you question your career in the forces, or
subsequently?
Yeah.
After I'd served in Yemen the year after, I just had a sense that it was selfish. Mostly selfish just to be away so much.
Yeah.
Also that I didn't want my children to bounce around school after school after school, as we moved from posting to posting, because you move every 2 or 3 years in the military, and I just thought I wanted them to have the security of growing up in mostly in one place, and maybe a little bit of the mortality. Certainly, I thought about it more since then.
Yeah.
You know, I probably, well, no, I say that, but I mean, when I left the army, I very nearly took a job in North Sudan or South Sudan as an advisor to on a kind of training team. So no, actually, it wasn't that simple. I still quite liked adventure,
and probably some of the danger as well. I imagine that kind of adrenaline element of that adventure and the danger kind of combined. Was that something that sort of drove you back then?
Not consciously, because like I say, when it got really real,
yeah,
I wasn't. You know, when the mortar lands next to you, well, for me, I don't think, well, this is great. This is what I wanted. That at that moment, it's clearly unlucky.
Yeah.
I think I normally feel lucky, and I have always thought that I will, if the odds are in my favour, I always calculate the odds in my mind as to whether something's likely to happen. And if it's not likely to happen, I don't worry too much about it. So even going to quite dangerous places, you're not, in my experience, you're not likely to be the one who gets it, who it happens to.
Yeah. In terms of obviously the instance at Basra Palace that happened, obviously I imagine that's probably the most dangerous place that you've been because that's where it's impacted you. But has there been another place where you've been on tour where you've kind of been quite fearful or a little bit worried about your own safety?
Yeah, several. Yemen, where I was doing a job training a Yemeni counter-terrorist unit, and I guess all of the time out there we stood out. I mean, Yemen was and probably still is, but it had quite a lot of Al Qaeda in Yemen, and you never. We were plain clothed out there. We were driving civilian vehicles and working in plain clothes, and we were quite vulnerable. The pre-training we had before we went out was very, very significant. We did a very significant package to make sure that we could defend ourselves. Well, I remember one time having a minor car crash out there, which sounds so trivial, but when you have a car crash out there, you then get a crowd around you. And we were quite heavily armed, but if people had seen that we were armed, we would have been in huge danger because they would have, our cover story was, well, we're oil workers. Well, we never really gave the cover story, but that was what we were kind of living, just trying to look like expats doing some work for a big company out there. But if people had seen what we were carrying, which they could have seen if they'd had a really good look in the vehicle or at us, I think we would have been, the the crowd would have turned on us, or they would have got someone who would have turned on us, who would have shot us or tried to take it. This was the time of hostage taking, so I knew that was dangerous at the time, and I was incredibly relieved when we got out of that. And I guess there have been a few like that over the years. I mean, Sierra Leone had a couple of dangerous moments.
Yeah. So kind of naming most of the unstable countries in the world there, Neil.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, that was what soldiering was in the period of time that I did it. You know, we went to a lot of these places. I served in. I actually had my former Yugoslavia tour, though, was remarkably easy. I served in Croatia. I mean, I can't even tell people I've got a medal for serving in Croatia. For God's sake, people pay to go on holiday there.
Well, I've been. It's really nice. So.
Yes. It even back then, it was still quite nice.
Yeah.
But then when you went over the border up into Bosnia, it very quickly stopped being nice.
Well, we did a day tour from Croatia into Bosnia actually, and then into Mostar, and you could still see all the kind of shellings on the side of the buildings, and some of the, I guess, the scars of what happened back during that time. Yeah.
We had a squadron in Mostar.
Right. Okay. Actually. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful place. Yeah. Really nice place. Obviously got a lot of history around that. So, kind of moving on, or I guess moving back a little bit. So you then met your wife Michelle, who was in the military as well. Was that through the military that you both met, or?
Yes, I met her in Belize actually.
Right.
So she was a helicopter navigator, and at the time we met, she was like kind of half trained. So she hadn't fully qualified, and she was on what they call a holding job. So she was out there for 3 months or 4 months. And so yeah, I met her there, and well, we got married a year and a bit later.
Yeah. Okay. So quite quick then.
I guess so.
First meeting, was that kind of normal in the military because you're so transient and you don't kind of get to stay in one place that you sort of seize the moment a bit quicker?
I don't know. Actually, I think we were just very into each other. I think we were just in love, and that was it, really. There was no question at the time. We just well, I knew what I was doing, and I think she did.
And then, how long after you sort of met did you have your first child?
A long time, because we met in 1994, and Tilda was born in 2005.
So how old have you been then, Neil, when your first child arrived?
Making me do some maths here.
Sorry.
So when Tilda was born, I was 35, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she would have been 5 then when obviously Michelle tragically lost her life in the car accident that you've talked about.
She was 4. She was four and a half.
Okay.
And Elsa was 2. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was on your 40th.
On my
birthday.
40th birthday. Yeah.
So do you still? I mean, is your birthday still your own, or is it a reminder of kind of what happened?
No, it's my own.
Okay.
I made a decision. I mean, not at first because it totally takes over. But I made a decision not to live a life based around sadness and loss and grief.
Yeah. I like it for your kids as well. I mean, it can't have been easy for them. I mean, I guess at 5, they're not really understanding what's gone on fully,
and that was very hard.
Yeah,
that they couldn't understand. I mean, actually. Well, for both of them. I mean, you see, for both of them, Michelle was pretty much their world. While I'd been going off to Iraq and Yemen and Gibraltar, I'm trying to think over those first few years, I was still a very active soldier and going off all over the place. Not just to the operations we've talked about, but just a couple of weeks on Salisbury Plain. There was always something. So Michelle had really, really been the centre of the girls' lives.
Yeah.
And I'd actually just left the army at the point she died. I'd left the army a couple of months before in order to build family life. And we'd had the most brilliant summer, just the most brilliant summer. And we just bought a house up here in Cumbria.
Yeah.
And it was just all coming together really, really well. And then I think the shock was just massive. And the girls, they couldn't understand it because it was just too much. It was this. This was everything for them. Michelle was everything for them, and she'd gone. And I couldn't explain it to them because how can you? Because there's no logic, there's no reason. It's too hard to comprehend, isn't it? So imagine a toddler trying to comprehend when mummy's gone.
Yeah. And I guess for you that must have been a huge transition as well, going from I guess being on active duty, which you just mentioned, to I guess becoming a full-time parent, a full-time present parent, I guess as well, and also being a male with 2 daughters. That can't have been easy.
No, it wasn't. The thing is, I could do it now because having gone through it, I understand all that it entailed, and it almost feels it's gone too quickly now. The girls have grown up, but it was incredibly hard because I'd been away a lot, and I was in very deep grief. There's total shock. It couldn't have been worse. We'd just bought this house, as you say. It was my birthday, but we'd had this great summer. It just felt like life was really getting started in the next phase. So it hit me very, very hard. And to then at the same time, I've been hit really hard to then have to learn every aspect. I mean, it's not that I was an absent parent, because for a few months I'd been around, but if I'm honest, I probably didn't even do my share of parenting. And I certainly didn't do all of it. And the novelty of doing a bit of it quickly wears out when it's all you and you're on your own and you're living in a place that I don't come. I mean, I love Cumbria and I'm very, very settled here now, and I've been here a long time. But back then, I didn't know people. I just left the army. I didn't really understand what bringing up young children entailed. So it was crushingly hard. I woke up. I remember I mean, again, anyone who's been bereaved will know this. You wake up happy because you've been dreaming about something, and then you think,
the reality
then
hits.
You realise, you remember what the world is, what's happened.
And I guess kind of moving on from that element, so what kind of support network did you have around you at that time, or did you have a support network around you?
Initially, lots of friends and family came up and just stayed with me, and it really, really helped. It really helped because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't concentrate or think of to do anything really, and nothing really interested me either. And I'd actually just started a job at British Sugar, and they wanted me back at work because I guess everyone who worked there was probably about in their 40s, and they hadn't gone through this, and it was all about money for them, and they couldn't really understand that this was, for me at that time, I wasn't going to be useful for a long time. It was just a shock. But people came and stayed with me and went through some of the awful paperwork that you have to do when someone dies, probate, and there's just these awful processes that are hard at the best of times. But when you've been hit, like anyone who's bereaved has been hit, it's almost impossible. Like these endless forms, and actually at the time, I was just angry at the world. And then after a while, the support kind of tails off, and there was a time for the first couple of weeks, I was overwhelmed by support. Great old friends, army friends, came and stayed with me, and And then after that, it tails off. People then they have to get on with their own lives, and there comes a time after bereavement where everything else has gone back to normal apart from your life.
Yeah.
And there's some of the families that my kids were at Grange School at the time, and some of the families there were really lovely to me. Some of the other parents there really looked after me, but they weren't deep old friendships. All my deep old friendships were hundreds of miles away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess your trust network was kind of disappearing around you. So when you were kind of bringing up your kids on your own, then is there things that you sort of sat back and thought, I could have done that better as a dad? I got that wrong as a dad.
Well, looking back at it, I wish I'd understood that there was more time at the time. I always felt rushed. I always felt busy. Like, we have to get to school now. Like, I didn't like to be late for school, which is really hard. Trying to get a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, or the two, Elsa had to come with me, and Tilda, who was the 4-year-old, I had to get to school, and it was only a 500-meter walk from where we lived to the school, but it always felt like a rush, and that we'd somehow be in trouble if we were late for school. And I don't know why I thought that. Like, who cares? Who cares if your 5-year-old's late for school?
Yeah,
it makes no odds, does it? And I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd been able to enjoy it more.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it more as time went on, but because I was so hurt by bereavement, what in many ways has been a wonderful opportunity to be so close to my children and to know them very, very well. But because I'd got it by such unpleasant means, by loss, it was hard to embrace at first.
Yeah.
I think I did it well, but I didn't necessarily enjoy doing it. You know, the girls and I went on holidays, and I'd take them to school, I'd pick them up from school. Later on, we got a lovely au pair. That took so much pressure off me and allowed me to go back to work as well. Because the other thing is, because I needed to make money.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And the British Sugar job, not only did I have to leave the job, I had to repay them my resettlement allowance, and it was just like a silly thing, but just so, their relocation allowance, they paid me, and it was like, it just felt so petty for a multi-million pound company to claim back 6,000 or 7,000. And whilst technically it was absolutely fair, and I'm sure I'd signed something that said they could do it, I cannot imagine
doing it yourself,
me doing that to someone else.
No, the same. I think in life you've got to have some understanding of what people are going through. I think sometimes big corporations get that quite wrong as well.
Shareholder value, but would you want to make your money at the expense of people who've been hurt? I mean, of course it all worked out for me, but one of the things that comes with bereavement is a total lack, or for me it did, a total lack of faith that the world will be okay. I've always believed that things will work out and that I'm mostly relatively lucky. Yeah. And just for a period of time, I didn't. I started falling for all those, insure your pipes from your house to the road, because if it goes wrong, it could cost you hundreds of pounds. I insured the pipes. I insured our water pipes, for God's sake. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? But I did that because I'd lost faith in things working out.
An interesting thing about this story, Neil, is that you've then built a legacy for Michelle. So you've now got the Michelle Jurd trust that you have, which obviously gives young people the opportunity to go off and do adventures. I guess was this all tied around your kind of desire for adventure as well, but wanting to try and create something that gave some young people that opportunity? Yeah.
It was. I mean, there were. In terms of why I started the charity, it was a feeling that Michelle had left the world too soon, and in some way I wanted her presence, influence, name to go on. I think that was a large part for me of why I initiated it. And in terms of what it does, she loved the outdoors. I mean, we moved to Cumbria because of a shared love of hills and water. So it just felt like something that represented, in a very simplistic way, but represented an element of her character, to just introducing the outdoors and adventure to young people. And the charity also, and we've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds over it's not a big charity, but we've raised a fair amount of money. Also supports veterans causes, charities. So every year we fund a veterans tea party. It's in October at the Castle Green Hotel in Kendal this year, but we fund a veterans tea party every year.
Yeah, no, amazing. In terms of kind of what happened next, then, Neil, from all of that sort of element, you've obviously now got an OBE. Do you want to talk to me about that? So Prince Charles apparently awarded that to you. What's one thing you sort of remember about that day?
It was an incredible experience. So I was awarded it for work I'd done with Army cadets. I'd been the director of officer training for the Army Cadet Force, and I was awarded the OBE for that on the military list, and it's just an incredible experience. We went, my current wife, my second wife, Macarena, and I stayed in Windsor, very near the castle, and then on the day, and this was soon after COVID, so we were really worried that the whole event might get cancelled again, but thankfully it wasn't, and it was a lovely day, and the whole experience is just made seamless and beautiful, and you're made to feel really, really special. And we were stood in a queue, but it's a queue spread out through all these state rooms. So you're not really queuing. You're just a group of 10 of you are in one room and the next 10 are in the next room and so on.
Like almost like a guided tour of the palace, but you just...
Yeah. But yes, actually it's true. I mean, but I was in the first group, so I didn't get the tour from room to room. And at the very front of the first group was Lewis Hamilton, who was getting knighted on the same day I was getting my OBE. So he was there with his mum, a few places in the queue ahead of me. And you're put at ease by the most charming people, like the members of the royal household, who are retired guards officers, I think. They're just so good at making you feel relaxed about the whole thing, and you get told what to do, but you also, I certainly had a sense that I couldn't really get it wrong, but it was they wanted it to go well for me. I think Macarena was much more nervous than I was for some reason, and she was kind of ushered to the back of the room so she could watch the experience, and you go into this room that I just remember being all gold and 17th, 18th century art. It's just remarkable. And Prince Charles, as he was at the time, was stood there, and walk out to him and sort of bow, and then he chats very knowledgeably. He's been very well briefed on everyone who comes in front of him, and presents the medal, and then you kind of move on.
Nice. And Prince Charles himself, is there anything you remember specifically about him? Because obviously the king.
I thought that I still do think that he's a lovely man. That was the impression I got, was that he really cared. That, I mean, he does give out thousands of these. Yeah. Over his lifetime, he must have given out 5,000 or 10,000, or I don't know, it's a huge number. But he made that moment feel special for me. Yeah. Like he was really interested in being there. So I think he really cares. Yeah. That's the impression I got.
Yeah. And then you've gone on to write your own leadership book. What sparked that? Was that maybe from your childhood with your dad being a sports journalist? Did that influence that? Probably.
He taught me to write by marking my English homework hard before I gave it in. You know, he taught me journalistic English. So he he would cross out any unnecessary words.
Yeah, fluff words.
Yeah. And then the army also teaches you to write in that style, very succinct. It's called staff writing, but you're taught to write very economically.
Yeah,
exactly enough words and no more.
Yeah.
And that's something that I did in the book. And the book really comes from my experiences in the army leading people, watching some great leaders being led by some really impressive people, and a few less impressive people. But again, they had their reasons, and trying to understand people is really important for me. And then later, I obviously I run a leadership training business anyway, so I've done a lot of leadership training and supported a lot of leaders in their own development.
And you've worked with some quite big global companies as well, as part of that sort of leadership development.
Yeah. I still sometimes find that surprising because we're a relatively small company. It's Leader Connect is the company. But yeah, I was the speaker at the Santander board strategy day a couple of years ago. We worked with Sanofi Pharmaceuticals, Virgin Media. Big
recognisable names,
but also lots of much smaller organisations. And like even one of the bits of work I've enjoyed most in the last few years is working with Dalham School, which is a school in Cumbria.
Yeah,
and we've just run a kind of a taster program to see if the sort of training we do will work with the senior leadership team of a school. And I love that. I really loved it.
I mean, obviously your kind of leadership experience has been quite impressive throughout your entire career, particularly through the army and the amount of people you've sort of led in very difficult situations and actually some very difficult environments as well. And there's lots of people out there that sort of say, I'm a great leader. And I think it's a term that's thrown around a lot at the moment, I guess just for the sake of the kind of kudos of it. But actually, what would you say is a great leader, Neil?
I'd say anyone who says they're a great leader isn't. Straight away, it's an egocentric, self-aggrandizing approach. I cannot imagine anyone who told me they were a great leader being someone I want to work for. I think that the best leaders come at it with humility, humanity, kindness. And also it's really hard work. You know, maybe you could acknowledge that at some point you led really well and you had a moment of great leadership. You just got it right in that moment. But you still need to try, because your next moment you might get it wrong. You might have a bad day. You might be irritated by something. You might be lazy. And if you're not giving your all, because leading well is hard work. It's not hard. The actions are relatively simple, but to just keep at it, to keep caring, to keep thinking, it's easier not to. It's easier just to build yourself up, say what a great leader you are, and but actually that's normally a directional, dominating approach where you make yourself this kind of figurehead, and it doesn't work. It doesn't develop others. It doesn't bring others out.
Yeah, I think the word that you've used there, humanity, is quite an interesting one. It's obviously something you didn't experience during your kind of moment of grief with the company that you were working with. That actually, if they'd taken a step back and sort of put themselves in your shoes, they might have approached that situation slightly different. But I guess that's the challenge when you're working with quite big corporates. It's very black and white, and there is no grey area ever. And so you're obviously running a great leadership platform at the moment, Leader Connect. So you can obviously do online courses on there, and you also still do your in-person courses as well, which from the reviews look like they're amazing. But what's next? What's next for Neil Jurd?
I think more of the same, actually. In work terms, more of the same. I like creating the content for Leader Connect. In fact, I more than like it, actually. So it's a bit of a dream job.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do more of that. I'd like to have more courses on the online platform, because I feel it's got huge potential. And running courses, again, it's hard work getting ready for a course. There's quite a lot of administration behind a course, especially if we've got like 20 people on a residential course. But running it is almost always joyous. We get to know the people on the course. I say we because I wouldn't run with 20 people. We have a team of four of us on it probably. But I love the connection and the interaction with our clients. We ran one down in Windsor at a really nice hotel in early June, and it was just a lovely, lovely experience. You know, the people, the clients, they're really, really intelligent people. It's a really high grade organisation. So just being with them is stimulating for us. It's the 4th year we've run the course for them, so they obviously, as a company, like the course.
Yeah.
But we get a lot from running it as well, I think. I personally get a lot from running it.
Yeah. I think that comes back to your army days. You know, is that why you enjoyed leading teams in the army as well? It's the kind of, you're seeing people develop from a professional and personal perspective. You're giving something to them that's making a meaningful difference.
I think there's something in the army structure which allows people to learn and develop really well.
Yeah.
I saw it again and again, especially with my kind of sergeant majors or senior NCOs who had often come from really hard backgrounds and had just qualified themselves by taking every opportunity to develop, doing courses in everything, language courses, adventurous training courses, and the army provides that framework. I wouldn't necessarily say my role when I was a squadron commander was maybe just to care for people and create the opportunities or remind them that these things were there. But really, it's bigger than that. The military system is bigger than that. The system is so good that it will support the soldier anyway. I felt it. I did a lot of training while I was in. I spent years doing courses, literally years. In a 17-year regular army career, I did a master's degree, a year at Staff College, a year at Sandhurst. So much leadership training, and that's why people say, "What do the army know about leadership?" Well, who are you to teach leadership in schools or businesses? Well, because we've been trained, and you will not find, I don't think, any organisation that will invest in its people as much, anything like as much. I've worked with very senior leaders in schools and businesses who've had no leadership training, or at the very most a week. Or
I think as well, Neil, what's interesting about that is actually in the army, your life literally depends on it, whereas in business, it doesn't. So the level of leadership training that you get in the military is literally to save your life. Yeah, it matters.
It's a clear purpose. There's a but again, not all the time, as I've said. Not every day in the army is dangerous. Almost every day isn't. Honestly, that organising the garrison fete, or doing a stock check of pictures in the officers' mess. There's a lot of stuff that is, frankly, trivial but necessary. So no, it's not always exciting.
Yeah. So just to kind of finish with, Neil, what do you want to be true in 5 years' time that isn't true today?
That the right people are in charge of the world. I feel at the moment the world is in the wrong hands. Too many people who are leading for the wrong reasons have found themselves in positions of extreme power and influence, and I think it's phenomenally dangerous. And I would hope that the world resets itself so people who have real control of themselves and a kind of a leaning towards kindness and benevolence and a willingness to really think hard. I want to see the end of charismatic leadership. I think charismatic leadership is so dangerous because it replaces substance with ego, with showiness, and we all fall for it, and it's so dangerous. So that's what I want to be true. I want us to have the right people in charge of the world, and I really hope that happens.
That's an amazing point to leave this kind of podcast on, and I just want to thank you for your time coming today, Neil.
Thank you, Gareth. It's been a
no
pleasure.
problem. Yeah, same.